Hello, and welcome to Global Data Themes Instant Insights. At Global Data, we define a theme as something that keeps a CEO awake at night, as businesses that invest in important themes will succeed, and those that don't will fail. Hello, and welcome to Instant Insights. Today, I will be talking to Shanil, the Commercial Director of Hawk UK, a cookieless omni-channel platform. We will be chatting about disruptive themes affecting the adtech industry, the cookieless future, new ad channel opportunities, and how the current macroeconomic climate could affect the industry.
Hi Emma, how are you doing? You well?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
Good. Great. Well, just to start us off, would you mind telling us a little bit about what Hawk does and your role there?
Yeah, thanks, Emma. So, Hawk, if you're unfamiliar with our business, we are a cookieless omni-channel platform. A lot of buzzwords there, but it means that we're certainly on trend when it comes to all of the digital trends that we're seeing in the ecosystem at the moment. We're a French business. We were founded in Paris in 2013. We opened up our London offices in 2015, and we've been growing ever since. And now we operate a global platform with presence in lots of markets. And yeah, that's I guess that's a quick intro to the business itself. My role is commercial director of the UK business. So I've been lucky enough to be at the business for 7 years now since we launched into the UK market. And that essentially entails commercial growth in this market of both our partners and new partners that we're looking to bring on board, just making sure that we structure our commercials in the right way for mutual growth across the ecosystem and all of the partners that we work with.
Yeah, so working with people on growth, I'm sure you're talking about the future themes and disruptive themes affecting the industry every day. What do you think are going to be the most disruptive themes affecting the ad industry in this coming year?
Yeah, I think it'll be a really, really interesting year this year. Sometimes disruptive can be seen as negative, but I think that in this sense, the industry itself has always seen disruption from new technologies entering the market. And I guess you could argue even our own business was quite disruptive when it came into the market in a time where cookies were king. We launched a platform that was completely cookieless, and that can be seen as, and certainly has been, pretty disruptive to the way that marketeers have worked since we launched. But I think one of the biggest things that we're starting to see is the fact that sustainability is playing more of a role within marketing. And that's definitely a good thing. Should be something that every business is thinking about when it comes to the way that they're structuring number one, the way their technology works, but also just how they behave across the market. I think I saw some figures from Good Loop, who are doing really, really good work in this space, that showed that around 61% of brand marketers have said that sustainability is going to be more important than price when it comes to their digital advertising strategy.
Wow.
So we're moving. Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? It's good to see that we're kind of getting towards this being a real focus for marketeers now. And when you think about the fact that programmatic in its early days was kind of used to drive down price and make things competitive when it comes to different ad slots, the fact that 61% of marketers now think that sustainability is more important than price is definitely a good thing. It means that hopefully we can get to a point where we are creating a more sustainable environment. Some of the figures that I've seen about carbon emissions from the advertising industry was quite scary, and something that I didn't think would be as high as it is. So I think that that's a big area of disruption, the fact that we're seeing more and more brands, more and more advertisers focusing on that and trying to get to a point where they're doing better for the environment while still running very, very effective campaigns. I think within that, a big part of that will be attention. And I think that that's something that we really saw disrupting the market last year. Attention metrics are becoming more and more important across all of the various channels that exist in the ecosystem. And if we can get to a point where we're serving less ads, but those ads are being looked at for a longer amount of time, you're not compromising on the quality of the advertising, but you are essentially serving less ads, which is kind of ties back into that sustainability point that I mentioned previously. You're serving less ads, you're reducing your carbon footprint whilst not compromising on the quality of the advertising that you want to serve. So attention will be a big part of that.
What kind of metrics do you look at when it comes to attention?
Boiled down, it's about how long the ads are being looked at, rather than how long they're on screen for, because something can be on screen but not being paid attention to.
Yeah.
Attention metrics look at things like eye tracking, and they use very, very clever algorithms that are trained in an AI environment to make an inference on how much attention that ad is getting. But there's a bit of a challenge at the moment because each company that's entering into this space is measuring attention and using attention in different ways. So it's very difficult to compare what attention looks like through one company to what attention looks like through another company. So that makes things like benchmarking quite hard.
Right. And I guess that ties in to my next sort of question about new channel opportunities, because I can imagine when you expand to different mediums, then that will then become even harder to standardize. But what kind of new exciting advertising channel opportunities do you see coming up?
So we started as a mobile specific technology, and we've now kind of transitioned into becoming the Europe's leading omni-channel platform for new digital screens. And so over the last kind of 5 years, we've really started to see things like programmatic audio and programmatic digital out of home really kind of coming into the fore and experiencing huge growth, especially during lockdown for digital audio. The fact that people were streaming more inside, listening to the likes of Spotify and listening to more podcasts because they had more time on their hands. And then when we came out of lockdown, you kind of saw the growth of digital out of home, which has absolutely exploded in the last couple of years because of the flexibility and data and efficiency and measurement that there's been seen through technologies like ours that are kind of aiding advertisers to step into that space. I think 2023 in game is probably going to experience the biggest growth in 2023 in terms of a global market. There are more people that now play games and, go to cinemas or even listen to audio streaming platforms. So the market itself is absolutely huge. We're at a point now where in-game and gaming isn't just confined to the stereotype of, 18-year-old boys locked in their bedroom. It's actually really diverse across all of the different demographics. So you can access new audiences in new ways. So the opportunity is absolutely there. And we're starting to see more and more interesting and innovative ways to engage with users through in-game experiences. So the fact that you can now serve programmatic advertising into hoardings around, football pitches when you're playing football games, or kind of seamlessly integrate them into experiences in first-person games, I think is really, really exciting and a really unobtrusive way to engage with these users who are, spending a lot of time in these environments. It's not like you out of a game, you might be in it for 20 minutes. And if you can have a brand that's present there, and then the cut through that brand will experience will be, a lot higher than kind of the more snackable media that you might see on your mobile devices. So I certainly think that in-game is going to have a big year this year. And we're already starting to see that with a number of brands entering into this space. Burberry have entered it, LVMH have entered it, Michael Kors have entered it. So you're seeing a lot of the big luxury fashion brands, which might not be the brands that immediately spring to mind when you think of in-game. But they definitely see it as a way to engage with younger audiences, recruit younger audiences, and then obviously the lifetime value of those consumers increases. So really interesting space, I think.
Yeah, I was at a convention a few weeks ago, and they said that McDonald's is looking to sort of enter this space. It's sort of like a metaverse type idea where they're thinking that when you order McDonald's, I think they're calling it Metaverse, and they're
very nice.
Looking at when you order McDonald's in the game, then it will also then turn up at your doorstep.
Yeah, and I think that those integrated, seamless marketing moments are going to be really, really important and kind of really exhibit growth in 2023 as well. That's a really interesting execution event. I think that McDonald's and other brands in that space are going to have to start thinking about solutions like that due to the HFSS restrictions that are coming up. So the total online ad ban, for example, that was due to come into play this year, but I think has been pushed back, means that any advertisers that advertise products that are high in fat content or sugar or salt won't be able to display those ads in online environments, so on desktop and on mobile. So they'll have to look at solutions like that. And I think the metaverse is a really, really good space for that. I think actionable audio is another way that we'll kind of see a lot of innovation coming into the market in 2023, and another new channel and innovation that we're going to see. The fact that you can now speak to your smart speaker ask the smart speaker to deliver you a coupon for a brand, for an ad that you've seen, or add something to your shopping basket. That idea of the connected home and connectivity is something that isn't particularly new. We've seen it for a few years, but something that technology is really kind of driving forward. So whether that's the metaverse, whether it's actionable audio, is what's going to really push the market forward and kind of bring new opportunities to advertisers.
Yeah, I mean, the space just changes so quickly, like keeping up with the technology, just, really fast changing space. Also in terms of regulation. So we can't talk about regulation without the sort of like the cookieless future. How do you think, what do you think is going to happen in that space?
Yeah, absolutely. We couldn't have a podcast talking about data without talking about cookies, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think it's something that the industry has been watching for quite a while now. In terms of the cookieless future, for us as a business, like I mentioned previously, we're a completely cookieless platform. Our founders had the foresight to see that cookies were still important at the time, but having a diminishing return when it came to marketeers' objectives, given the fact that mobile usage was increasing at the time and desktop decreasing, the fact that in open web environments, you can only use cookie data. So for us, it won't have too much of an effect. We've already built our platform to be cookieless, and all of the channels that we operate and the way that we tie those channels together have been cookieless since day one. But I think you are seeing a lot of those businesses that built their technology around cookies having to massively pivot the way that they do things. And obviously that's not a bad thing. Sometimes these challenges can throw up better ways of doing things. I think that for a long time, we've become over-reliant on cookies. And with that comes over-reliance on, let's say, last click attribution, looking at path conversion, all those things that performance marketers have looked at for a long time, which have been really, really useful metrics, but maybe there is a better way to do it. And maybe actually removing the cookie will allow us to kind of get back to the creativity and kind of the glitz and glamour of advertising, rather than just focusing on the cold, hard ROI metrics that the cookie kind of really kind of made the industry do. But essentially, it'll be those businesses that built their technology around cookies, but it'll also be the marketers themselves, because for so long we've used cookies on website to track things like conversions. And once you take that out of the ecosystem, once you take that third party out of the ecosystem, it makes it much more difficult to do that. And that's why we are seeing the metrics that we're seeing really come to the fore, like brand metrics, looking at awareness right through to purchase intent, things like footfall now being measured, and that's a completely cookieless metric as well. Attention is completely cookieless, viewability is completely cookieless. So it's not like removing the cookie is going to kind of make the advertising house of cards crumble. There's actually loads of opportunities out there that sit outside of cookie data that might be a better way to reframe performance and how your ROI is being driven. We're also seeing a move away from kind of one-to-one data sets to more like kind of one-to-many data sets. So rather than focusing on a specific user, focusing on a specific space, and whether that space over indexes on a certain demographic or certain behavior that data can tell us about. So
that's really interesting. So for the way, those types of metrics, would that mean that things are slightly less personalized to the person that you're targeting? It would be more to do with targeting a group?
Yeah, not necessarily. I don't think you need to compromise on personalization. I think that the way that we think about personalization probably does change a little bit though. But it does probably offer even more opportunities for personalization at scale, because if you're looking at personalizing something on a one-to-one basis, being able to scale that up and being able to have a scalable solution becomes quite difficult, because there's a very finite amount of people that you want to target that you know are your target audience. Whereas if you look at things on a slightly more holistic level, you can use things like weather triggers, for example, and that's relevant to everybody in a certain space at a certain time. So it doesn't need to be non-personalized. It can actually be very, very personalized, but just at probably a greater scale. If I can serve an ad for a hay fever brand when pollen count is high in a park that I might be in at a time, that doesn't compromise on personalization. That's relevant to everybody in that park. Similarly, there's loads of good executions and those good examples of where this has been done. We ran a campaign which was highly personalized for an FMCG brand, a spice brand, which basically brought in recipes that could be made in the morning, evening, and lunchtime, and at different days of the week, because our research showed that people's cooking behaviors change as we go through the week. So it actually recommended recipes that people could make based on the macro environments they were in, based on time and kind of time in the week. So yeah, you can still be really, really personalized. It's just that the way that we frame that personalization probably needs to change away from one-to-one again, probably to the macro elements of a campaign of weather or pollen count or day of week or time, but essentially anything with an API. You can even look at things like flight paths, football scores. All of that still means that we can still personalize advertising in a really nice and meaningful way.
Sort of targeting your team that when they've lost, targeting them with Kleenex.
Yeah, absolutely. Those sorts of plays, which I'm sure a lot of people experienced in the World Cup earlier this year.
Yeah. So, who do you think, with this sort of rollback of cookies, who do you think that will benefit the most? Obviously, with a cookieless platform like yours, but then also, do you think it could end up sort of entrenching the big tech monopoly on online advertising due to their just like access to data and things like that?
Potentially, although I actually think that it might be the opposite in many ways, because with challenges that we see in the ecosystem, there has to come collaboration to be able to get over those challenges. So actually, I think that if people that are affected by the changes in the ecosystem can collaborate and use the best of what they have, actually, it can probably diversify the landscape a little bit more. So if you look at a partner that might have really, really good data on one side, a partner that has really good supply on the other side, someone that looks at metrics in a new way, and you combine those three things together, you actually have a product that the sum of the parts actually become far more powerful than those players acting alone. So it might entrench the big tech monopoly, and we are obviously seeing the big tech monopoly increasing, more and more revenues going into Google, more and more revenues going into Facebook. But on the flip side, we are seeing some brands and some agencies wanting to roll that back slightly to have a more healthy ecosystem, to reduce that reliance on big tech.
Yeah, I mean, big tech doesn't seem to be in the best position right now, with I think every single company laying off, had a lot of its workforce. But I guess that's just the general trend with the macroeconomic downturn. Do you think there'll be cuts in ad spending due to this economic climate?
I think what we've seen from the advertising industry over, the course of decades is that the industry itself is a really, really resilient industry. So even during the COVID pandemic, we did see a reduction in ad spends in like Q2 of 2020 because brands didn't know what to do. It was, I don't want to use the word, but it was unprecedented. No brand had to go through that before, and they didn't know whether to advertise, whether they would be seen in the wrong environments, whether people wanted to even hear from them at that stage, because there was so much going on outside of, the standard day-to-day that brands didn't really know what to do and how to engage. So obviously we saw a downturn when it came to the pandemic, but since then we've seen ad spends increase quite dramatically. And there's been lots of studies out that have shown that advertising in tough times has a net positive effect for a brand in the long term. So brands that do advertise in kind of economic downturns often end up winning out in the long term. But we are still expected to grow at around 4% overall as an industry. So even though we are seeing a reduction in that growth, we are still growing. And I think that that's a really important thing, and something that advertisers have learned over the years. And there will be some that obviously roll back and that don't want to advertise and that can't advertise for various reasons. But if you look at things on a macro level, I think we will be up year on year, but that growth will certainly slow. And I think that as a result of being more stringent on spends, we're going to see more scrutiny on things like return on investment. So brands are going to want to know where every single penny of their advertising spent is being spent, or advertising budget is being spent, but also how much they're accruing off the back of it. So transparency is going to be really important. If they are investing into our platform or into campaigns, they're going to want to know the effect that's having on their brand, be that brand metrics or be that footfall, be that ROI of purchases of their product. It means that people are going to need to innovate and need to have very, very robust measurement solutions to ensure that brands are confident enough that, yes, we are going to be able to measure the ROI that we get back from this campaign, see a positive lift, and then reinvest that back into the ecosystem. So there's a few, I guess, nuances to my prediction there, which is that brands will continue to spend. And that's if they have transparency and if they have really, really good measurement on their campaigns, which, like I said, platforms like ours can absolutely guarantee.
Yeah, definitely. I think, when volatile times hit, often innovation is stifled. But I think often the companies, that come out on top are the ones that continue to do that.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Shanil, for chatting to me today. I think that's all we have time for. So thanks for listening. And from us in Thematic Intelligence, see you next time.